maybe I've reason to believe we all will be received in Graceland.
Thank you, Steve. That's one of my favorites. I love that. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Did everybody have a wonderful 4th of July? I sure hope you did. Yeah. We had a wonderful time yesterday. We went to Green, Texas. Some of you have been to Green before. I love that little place. And got to hear some really good music and just hang out with the folks, and went to some of the shops, and it was a good day. Warm. It was definitely warm. It's Texas. I mean, you know. July in Texas, for that matter, yeah. Well, it's actually drier than July in Arkansas, but it's good. Well, we've been, last week we started a series talking about prayer and opening to the divine through prayer. And we started working with this wonderful book called The Universe is Calling. I just love the title of that book, don't you? I mean, just thinking about that, understanding the idea that the universe is calling. Hello? The question really is, are we listening? And are we really open to the calling that the Spirit has for us and has through us in life? And one of the things that we kind of touched on last week that I want to say a little bit more about is that Eric Butterworth, the author of this book, is a wonderful, powerful teacher and really very clear and very aware in many ways. And one of the aspects of this teaching that I think is so valuable is he's talking about this understanding that prayer is not just a whimsical kind of thing, that there really are ways that we can pray that are more effective for allowing us to experience the blessings of the divine than perhaps some other ways. Some of the ways that we tend to pray are kind of, in a way, praying in reverse, you might say. Jesus said praying amiss. But sometimes we spend a lot of our time and energy, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions in this little activity that we call worry. And I'm going to suggest to you that worry is prayer in reverse. That we're spending our energy focusing on what we don't want. We're spending our time, our energy, our thoughts, our consciousness focusing on those things that we wish to avoid in life. We spend a lot of time and energy trying to avoid, don't we? And I'm going to suggest to you this is prayer in reverse. And so part of what we're wanting to learn in this process is how do we then reverse our reversals, you might say. How do we then retrain ourselves so that we are really tuning our energy and our consciousness to focus on experiencing what we truly want to experience in life, and coming from a place of really experiencing what we ultimately want to experience in life, which is more of the flow of the divine in us and through us and in life. One of the things that Eric talks about is that true spiritual scientific prayer, as he defines it, is not so much praying to a God out there as it is a consciousness of praying from the awareness and the presence of God everywhere, and especially within our own nature, within our own being, within our own consciousness. So it's not a praying to, it's actually more of a praying from. And that really, to me, is very empowering. When we really tune into that understanding that we're not praying to something out there, we're praying from an awareness of the divine in us and in all things. And when we're able to do that, we align ourselves with that energy and that consciousness of the divine in a way that uplifts us in our own energy and our own consciousness. And then there's these things that go on that are divine principles that have to do with what we put out, we get back. Or what we in Unity call the law of cause and effect. This next section, we're going to talk about one thing, though, that has come into a lot of New Thought awarenesses and New Thought teachings, primarily from Eastern thinking, from Hinduism, and that is the idea of karma. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about an idea that is very steeped in the teachings of Jesus, and that is the idea, the understanding of grace. And as we get into this, I always like to start off with a little story. There was a story about 4 members of a clergy, and they were having a theological argument with 3 male ministers siding against a female minister. And the woman prayed, "Lord, I know I'm right. Please send us a divine sign to prove it." And a big storm cloud materialized, and there was a clap of thunder. "And see," said the woman, "it's a sign from above." And the 3 clergymen disagreed, saying, "No, thunder is very common around here. It's a common phenomenon." And so she went on, and she said, "Dear Lord, I need a bigger sign. This time, a bolt of lightning slammed into a tree nearby. See, I told you I was right." And the woman said, but the men insisted nothing. I mean, this is a natural phenomenon. This happens around here all the time. It's natural causes. So she says, "Lord, help me." And a deep voice came from the heavens and said, "She's right." And the woman turned to the other 3 clergymen and they said, "Well, it's okay. Now it's 3 against 2. We guys can be a little persistent at times. That's a very positive way of putting it, isn't it? Sometimes we can be very persistent in our ideas and our thinking about prayer, about life. And one of the things that Eric talks about is the philosopher Zeno says that one of the biggest things that we need to do in our spiritual unfolding is the most important aspect of learning. The learning process is to unlearn our errors. And so one of the things that we want to begin to do is begin to notice the ways that we have thought about prayer and really look at, are they really aligning us with the energy and the creative consciousness of Spirit in such a way that we are participating in that prayer process in a way that brings about greater blessings, or are we focusing our attention and energy in such a way that we are attracting and drawing to us those things that we don't necessarily want to experience more of in life? Not that anybody here has ever done that, of course, but we all do. It's one of the things that we have been conditioned, I think, in many ways to do. So part of our work is to begin to unlearn many of the things that we've learned. Begging and beseeching as a way of prayer, I can assure you, I have had many opportunities where I have prayed and begged and beseeched, and I want you to know I have experienced answers. And yet, one of the things I've also done is begged and beseeched and thought that somehow that there was going to be something out there that was going to change so I didn't have to deal with it. Right? And most of the time, what happens in those situations when I really pay attention is it doesn't necessarily change what goes on out here, but it changes my understanding and awareness of what's going on out here in such a way that I can deal with and handle and work with whatever is going on out here from a little different perspective. That I can see things from a little bit higher awareness, that I can see those in my life from a different place and see them differently and realize that everyone is ultimately trying they're doing the best that they can with where they're at and with what's going on in life. And for me to try to say that where they're at is not okay is really, there needs to be some shifting in me so that I can see and help them to see perhaps that there are better ways of experiencing their own blessings and for me to experience my blessings in a different way. Does that make sense? So part of our work is learning to shift our understanding and awareness of what's going on in life and really begin to work with the principles that are here in our experience and our awareness in such a way that we can focus on the blessings and bring those forth even more. It's been called the law of attraction in New Age. In Unity, we say thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. What we focus on, we experience more of. And so part of what our work with in prayer is to learn how to really shift our energy, our consciousness in such a way that we are really focusing on more of the presence of the divine in all of its wonderful, blessed aspects. So he talks about this idea of karma, and karma, from a Hindu perspective, he talks a little bit about this understanding that there's oftentimes a misunderstanding of this idea of karma, and that can be a trap. And we want to not necessarily get caught up in this trap on a way of thinking. Generally, karma is thought of as whatever we have done in our past, and from a strictly Hindu, Eastern kind of idea, something that happened or we did in a previous lifetime is what really is determining what our life is like today. So this is really more defined as, he says, a more basic understanding of karma really has to do with fate. And that you are pretty much tied to whatever your fate is. That whatever you did in a past life, whatever choices you made, whatever experiences and ways that you were in a past life is going to determine how you are today. He says that's a little bit of a misawareness of this law and this principle, because it tends to present an idea or an understanding that we're stuck, that we can't really make a choice about what goes on in our life, that we really don't have any way of really changing what goes on in our life. And this is one of the challenges that we oftentimes see, is that there's this belief system that says, well, if someone is poor, it's because they did something in their past life and there's nothing they can do about that. That's just karma. This is a misunderstanding of the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect really has to do with an understanding that we always have choice. And it's important to recognize that we always have choice. That we, yes, will experience, we will reap many of the things that we have sown in life, but we always, in this moment, have a choice to choose differently. And this is one of the things that really, I think, empowers us to be a part of the divine process of creation. He says on the surface, this concept of karma would appear to be the equivalent of the Western concept of the law of cause and effect, that whatever man sows, that will he also reap. But he goes on to say, we also set the tone and standard for our tomorrow in the way that we deal with the world today. And so the law of consciousness is really what we're talking about in Unity. The fundamental law, the law of sequence and consequence, or if you will, the law of consciousness, is that what we are holding in our consciousness now determines what we will continue to experience in our life from this point forward. And so we're not stuck, we're not trapped, that we can always make a choice. We can always choose differently. And so this is an important distinction between the idea of karma, because the traditional idea of karma is that you really don't have that choice, that you're going to experience whatever you did. And the reality is there's also a principle at work in the universe. And this is one of the most wonderful things and one of the most valuable parts, I believe, of what Jesus came to teach us. There's also a law that is called the law of grace. And the law of grace is very important and very powerful in this respect. It always is. It always exists. It's always happening. It's always functioning. And the law of grace is that no matter what we are doing and thinking and experiencing out here in the world, it does not change the nature of the divine. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. It does not change the nature of the divine. God is now, has always been, and will always be love. God always is, always has been, and always will be loving. And the powerful thing about this is because you and I are created in the image and after the likeness of the divine, it actually does not ever truly change who and what you are. And it does not change the love that the universe, that God, that the divine has and is through you. So even though we can hide our awareness to that divine presence, we can hide our understanding of the divine, we can not see love in a particular way or a particular form at times, we cannot see perhaps the qualities and characteristics of the divine because our consciousness is filtering it out in some form in some way, or we're choosing to see in a different way. The beautiful thing is it doesn't change the presence of God, and it doesn't change you. And you are still absolutely loved, adored, appreciated, valued, because that's the essence of the divine. I was looking up for this quote. There was a wonderful quote, and I couldn't find the author of this quote. Some of you may be able to help me. I think it was Meister Eckhart, but I'm not 100% positive. And the quote goes like this: I don't thank God for loving me because he can't help himself. It is what God is. Love is what God is. So it's important for us to recognize that we can hide and blind our awareness and our experiences of that love. So we're not denying that we do that. We do, don't we? We don't often look at life through the eyes of love. We don't often look at the world through the eyes of abundance. We don't often look at the world through the eyes of peace, do we? But it has not changed the nature of the divine in any way. And that's grace. Now, it does change our experience, doesn't it? If I hold an energy and a consciousness of fear, if I have a belief system that says that the world is a scary place, and that's what the world tries to teach, really, if you think about it. If I look at the world, if I have patterns and thoughts and belief systems in my consciousness that say certain people are a certain way, then I'm going to experience those people that way. Because I don't see the world as it is. I see the world as I am. I see the world as I hold in my consciousness. I see the world as I am holding that energy and vibration. If I see men a certain way, I'm going to experience them that way. If I see women a certain way, I'm going to experience them that way. If I see children a certain way, I'm going to experience them that way. If I see animals a certain way, I'm going to experience them that way. I'm going to draw to me experiences that validate what it is that I think and believe about life and the world. And so when I'm experiencing things in my life and my world that I'm not real crazy about, anybody ever experienced anything like that? Eric says, the real work is not to set it right, but it is to see it rightly. Begin to shift our thoughts and our feelings and our energies in such a way that we are not focused on those things that are no longer bringing about a greater awareness of the presence of the divine, that are separating us from that energy of love and that consciousness of grace, but realigning ourselves with the true nature of our being and with the true nature of the divine. When I was in ministerial school, I was asked to write a paper. It was part of my karma, I'm sure. But I write a paper on grace and what grace really meant to me and the importance and the value. How did I understand this juxtaposition is that the way you say it? It's easy for me to say, right? Juxtaposition between the law of cause and effect and the principle of grace. And I got this image or this story that came to me about a young man who went to the county fair. You guys have been to the county fair, right? And there was a booth there where you could take these rings and you throw them over the bottle tops. You guys ever seen those? You know what I'm talking about? And or it could be, you throw the baseball at the bear. I think this one was throwing the baseball at the bear and trying to knock the bears off. And if you knock the bears off, then you get to win the prize, right? And so part of the idea in this was to talk about the understanding of salvation, the traditional idea of salvation, and how that relates to the law of karma and the principle of grace. And what came to me is that you and I are like that young person who goes to the fair and throwing the ball at the bear, if you knock the bear off, then that's supposed to be salvation, that you win the prize. Well, you might say it this way. The way we say it in Unity really is you experience the blessings. You experience the connection. You experience you experience the blessings of God. So if you get if you hit the bear just right, then it's going to fall, you're going to knock it over, and you get to have the blessings. And sometimes we think about prayer that way, don't we? We think about, well, we've got to we've got to pray just right in such a way that it's, it's got to be absolutely perfect, otherwise it's just not going to work and I'm not going to get the blessing. Sometimes we fall into that trap, I think, in prayer. But the story came along that really not only that kind of does describe in some ways the law of cause and effect, the law of what you put out, what you get back, and I think there's some reality to that. There are principles at work that we need to follow. We do need to align our thoughts and our thinking in such a way that we are in harmony and in tune with the good that's available to us. And so the story was that not only are we needing to knock the bear off to get the blessing, we kind of we need to, there are rules to the game, right? And so we need to knock the bear off. But here's the good news. Here's the grace. The guy behind the booth has a son. And the son has done this so many times, and he's an expert, and he knows how to get there and take the baseball and throw it and knock the bear off. And so he has his son come around and show us how to do it. How do we knock that bear off? And the son shows us how to do it. Now the son doesn't come and do it for us. There are those who say the son comes and does it for us. My understanding is that Christ's presence comes and shows us how to align ourselves in such a way that we experience the blessings. And that's a part of the grace, is that we have a way of learning how we can align ourselves with the divine. And another part of the grace is this. We get to keep trying over and over and over again until we knock the bear off. We get as many tries, it's not 3 tries. We just keep doing it until we do get an awareness of that blessing. To me, that's the law of cause and effect, and it's also the grace of the divine. The blessing is already there. The reality is we already won. But we do need to align ourselves in such a way that we can accept that love, that we can accept that joy, that we can accept that peace, and that we can learn to see that not just in ourselves but in each other. And in the very act of seeing it in others, we also enhance and strengthen that within ourselves. So this week, what I invite you to do is to really take some time to reflect on and meditate on this understanding. Two things. There's only one presence and one power in this universe, in this place, and in my life, and in me. And that presence and power is divine love. And two, and I choose to be a part of the upward, mobile, lifting consciousness that moves me even more into an alignment with that principle and that presence of divine love in my life and in my world. I love this affirmation that I was looking for. This came from a daily word, but there was also a philosopher who quoted this, who said, "I am one with the upward progressive movement of God." This is one of the things about grace, is that one of the things that Eric talks about that I really love also is that regardless of the amount of, I guess the way he says it, the way, I talk about it in terms of anabolic and catabolic energy. Here's how I understand it. There's energy throughout the universe. You and I are all a part of energy. We are created of energy. We are energy. Some people call it spirit. I like that word as well. Spirit has an energy, or is an energy perhaps. But there are energies that are life-enhancing, and there are energies that are life-depleting, right? And we all have them. We all are participating in ones that are life-enhancing and life-depleting. And there are thoughts and feelings and belief systems that really drain our life energy from us in many ways. And there are energies that really just build up and enhance those life energies, the blessings. The beauty of grace is this: no matter how much we find ourselves dwelling in, stuck in, caught up in the whirlwind of anabolic energy, the negative thought, as we call it, thoughts and feelings and belief systems, the angers, the frustrations, the resentments, no matter how much we put out there of that kind of energy, the universe itself is anabolic. And we never reap back the same amount of negative energy that we put out as we do positive energy. To me, that's the beauty of grace. It's also the beauty of our own divine nature. You're created in the image and after the likeness of absolute oneness and love and joy. And you're safe in knowing that no matter how much we get in our pity pot, not that anybody ever has done that, I know I have, but no matter how much down we get, there's a power that is at work in and through us that will ultimately help us to move beyond that. Now, we can do that slowly, or we can do it quickly, or we can do it, in ways that really enhance our awareness. And that's part of what we're learning how to do, is to tune into that in such a way that we experience more of that joy and the blessings that are always available to us. So have some fun with that this week. Take some time to really reflect on and think about, how am I aligning myself with that presence? And that's our lesson for the week. Have a good time. Let's move into our meditation time. So let's move into that place of peace, a place where we are most open and receptive to knowing and feeling and experiencing that connection, that oneness, that love, that grace, beyond our own understanding or awareness, beyond our own, even our own ability to love, we are loved. And even though we can hide our eyes from that presence, from that light, from that love, we choose this time to remind ourselves to be still and know, to be still and know that I am loved, to be still and know that I am loving, to be still and know that I am love. Thank you. Thank you, Blessed Spirit, for being love in me, for showing me the way, for guiding me to know my oneness, my true nature, as an expression of your light and love, to shining through those places in me where I feel I am in darkness, or I have not seen the light or love. Thank you for opening my heart and my eyes, for helping me to align my whole consciousness and being with the healing grace that you are in me and in my world. Thank you. And I give thanks not because you need it, because I know that my gratitude draws to me even more of that grace. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Take a nice deep breath now. Let your heart be filled with the gratitude of knowing that you are loved. Take another nice deep breath. And let your heart be filled with the gratitude of knowing that love is in you and expresses through you. And take another nice deep breath and be the love that you are in this room, this time, this place. Thank you. And gently open your eyes. And so it is. Amen.